What's poppin', everyone? Adama here. So just last week there was a new phone that was just launched into the market, the Redmi K30. Now when you hear that name, you may actually think, wait, is it the successor to the Redmi K20 Pro? No, not exactly. So basically the Redmi K30 is like the normal version, while the Redmi K30 5G is the successor to the Redmi K20 Pro. So in this video, I want to actually compare this Redmi K30 to the Pocophone F1, because the Pocophone F1 has had this influence on budget smartphones ever since its release. It's like this looming shadow that overwhelms every single budget smartphone. No matter how much specs you cram into your phone, you've never gotten your phone down to $300 starting price. So it's very, very interesting, and I actually think this comparison would be like a very, very interesting and fun thing to do. So let's get into it. In the design department, the Pocophone F1 has a plastic body and no form of glass at all on it, and it has this very, very plain look, so no fancy gradient design. And generally, if you look at the Pocophone F1, it doesn't even look like some phone that is very huge or worth your notice. But then come to the Redmi K30, and then it's a glass back, and it has this design that sort of resembles the Mate 30 Pro's design, and it's pretty nice to look at. I don't think there's any fancy gradients like the Redmi K20, but then if you're talking about design mostly in these phones, glass is more premium, and though it makes your phone more breakable and also brings a lot of fingerprints to your phone, it's still more premium and it's associated with high end. So if you are like trying to get your phone because you want it to have a high end look, then you should definitely go for the Redmi K30. But then in the display department, I don't actually see much of a disparity here, apart from one area. Now both of them are LCD displays, with the Redmi K30 coming at 6.67 inches and the Pocophone F1 actually coming at 6.18 inches. Both have 1080p screens, but then the Redmi K30 is a taller display, so you can fit more things into it. And generally for 2019 standards, anyone that isn't using an aspect ratio of say 19.9:9 or 20:9, I don't actually know what you're doing. But then this isn't really like a major factor, because many people don't actually care about that extra space that you're cramming stuff into. The most people that may probably care about this kind of thing are gamers, and gamers are the ones that actually need like a lot of screen estate so they can have like space for their controls and also viewing the game properly. So if you're not a gamer and you're looking for a phone, I think the Redmi K30 is not really the best deal for you, but it is still the best deal for you because it has a 120 Hz refresh rate, and it also supports HDR10. So now refresh rates don't really matter to some people. It's just like a massive power draw, and it's killing your battery just to make your phone feel faster, but then in the end it's not really faster to them. So if you're not one that actually cares about HDR10 or 120 Hz displays, then go for the Pocophone F1. You'll be perfectly comfortable with that display. But now let's actually talk about the side of these phones that actually gave them their spotlight, which is their performance. Now in the performance department, that's where you actually start to see some disparities between these two phones. Now the Redmi K30 has a Snapdragon 730G. a gaming oriented chip that is used mostly in phones that are supposed to be gaming phones in the mid-tier markets. Now, it comes with 6 gigs of RAM base and about 8 gigs of RAM at maximum with 256 gigs of internal storage. The Pocophone F1, on the other hand, comes with a Snapdragon 845, the best Snapdragon chip, or rather the highest end Snapdragon chip of 2018. And it also comes with 6 gigs of RAM base and 8 gigs of RAM maximum with 256 gigs internal storage too. These two phones have the same amount of internal storage and RAM. So what is the difference between them? Now, here's the thing. The Snapdragon 845 is a flagship chip. So no matter what you do, no matter how much you try to compare these two chips, the Snapdragon 845 still takes it when it comes to performance. The benchmarks show it. Even day-to-day usage will actually show that the Snapdragon 845 is much faster than the Snapdragon 730G. But then, if you now want to look at it in a way, the Snapdragon 730G runs on an 8 nanometer process, while the Snapdragon 845 runs on a 10 nanometer process. So the Snapdragon 730G is more power efficient while delivering its amazing processing power. But the Snapdragon 845, on the other hand, it's not as power efficient as the Snapdragon 730G, but it is very, very power efficient. So when you just look at that, for me, if I were picking my phone based on performance, which is what I do almost all of the time, then definitely I'll be picking the Pocophone F1. Now, in camera department, I think this is where the Pocophone F1 actually got blown out of the water. Now, the Redmi K30 comes with a 64 megapixel main camera, an 8 megapixel ultra wide camera, a 2 megapixel depth sensor, and a 2 megapixel macro lens, while the Pocophone F1 comes with a 12 megapixel main camera and a 5 megapixel depth sensor. Not the most versatile camera system in the world, but then let's not forget this phone was launched in 2018 when versatility in cameras wasn't really becoming much of a thing. It was early 2019 that we started to see more versatile cameras entering into the market, like the telephoto lens and the ultra wide lens. So this is very much understandable. Now, how do shots from these two phones compare? Here's the thing, I can't really say because I don't have the two phones in hand, but I do know that if you're looking at the picture quality, the Redmi K30 may actually have to carry it because it has a 64 megapixel camera. Even though it's doing pixel binning, but it's still a higher resolution camera and will still produce much better shots than other cameras. And as for their selfie cameras, both have 20 megapixel main cameras. But then the Redmi K30 actually has a second camera in a hole punch cutout, which is a 2 megapixel depth sensor. So that's fair and decent. So I don't actually have problems with this. Both cameras can record 1080p at 30 frames per second, but I don't think there's any form of stabilization on the Redmi K30. The Pocophone F1 has electronic image stabilization at 1080p, but it's for us to actually get the phone in hand and then actually know how this works out. Both front-facing cameras can also do 1080p video at 30 frames per second. Both phones in battery life are actually quite differentiated a lot. Now, the Redmi K30 has a 4500 mAh battery, while the Pocophone F1 has a 4000 mAh battery. Now, they are sizable amounts. 4000 mAh is like the base minimum for you to actually say that your battery is good, starting from, I believe, 2018 up till now that I'm recording this video. But then charging speeds are actually where you see a disparity. It's actually very funny because the difference is just 9 watts. The Pocophone F1 has 18 watts fast charging, while the Redmi K30 supports 27 watts fast charging, and it goes from 0 to 100 in about 68 minutes according to GSM Arena. So for me, if I was now actually going to nitpick a little, the Redmi K30 is actually a more reasonable deal for me. I'm just losing out on a little bit of the higher end performance that the Pocophone F1 should have. But then what I'm gaining on the other hand is a more versatile camera, bigger battery with faster charging, a more vibrant and beautiful display, and a very much more power efficient chip. So all those things put together, I actually think that if you're in the market trying to find a phone to buy, then you should actually check out the Redmi K30. The Pocophone F1, though it performs better than the Redmi K30 when it comes to its chip, it's not beating it in any other aspect. But then that's what happens when you compare two phones that are actually like almost a full year apart. And it also goes to show us how far that tech has come within just a whole year of phones. But then that's been it. Let me know in the comment sections below what phone you would actually get if you were in the market. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.